Session at 5:40 and adjourned into executive session for the purpose of negotiations. And I apologize that we ran over, but we were working hard and we wanted to get things done. So what I'd like to do right now is do the Pledge of Allegiance, particularly in view of everything that's been going on, and we'll move from there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. Is there anyone else present who's planning to record? All right, seeing no one. First item of business is the consent agendas for the regular school committee meeting of September 19th and the policy subcommittee meeting of September 20th. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular school committee meeting September 19, 2017, sir.
Second.
Second,
Yeah.
made and seconded. Any discussion? Anybody find any points of concern? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition or abstention? Okay, the vote is 4-0. I'll entertain a motion on the subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, I make,
I'm sorry. Yeah,
oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said something, sir.
no.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the policy subcommittee meeting September 20th, 2017, sir.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any correction or concern about those minutes?
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was confused.
Okay. We all set?
Yes, sir.
All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any negative vote or abstention? Seeing none, it's 4-0 vote. We're now going into public comment. When you come to the table, please give your name and address, and we'll go from there. Anyone like to address the committee at this time?
Howdy. Do I need to pull this up? Just a
Yeah,
little.
you should pull
Yeah,
it.
probably.
Hi, my name is Eddie Poirier. I live at 21 River Neck Road in Chelmsford. I just wanted to come in today to follow up on a couple of things. I spoke at the subcommittee meeting, and I thought it was important for me to come in here and speak to the whole committee, because, as you know, I had asked for an exception, and I know you all are considering making exceptions, so I had a few suggestions. You heard it before, and so did the superintendent, but the other people haven't. I just think that, one, there's a couple of things that are very, very black and white as far as exceptions go. If there's a terminal illness in the immediate family, if there's a death in the immediate family, I would think that if you guys draw something up where you're going to allow exceptions and allow the superintendent, empower the superintendent to make those decisions, I think these are two things that are really very, very clear. The other thing that I thought would also be important are kids that are bullied. Because sometimes kids, when they're at a particular school or wherever, they may have a problem there. And sometimes there's just no solutions for that. And I think that that's something also that also should be considered. The other reason why I'm here is I wanted to let everybody know that I've decided to withdraw my request to have Bailey move to Parker. It's a couple of reasons. I was telling Dr. Lang before you all come in that as a dad, I was hoping as time went along that Bailey would find a comfort zone and Bailey would come to me and say, hey, Dad, I like this school. It's working out. I want to thank the people on the school committee. Who's John? John? How are you, John? Some of the people who reached out to me, and they suggested that we maybe could bus Bailey over to the Parker Middle School. It has worked out wonderfully. And I think that if we could have met face-to-face earlier in the year, I think if we could have had this discussion earlier, maybe a face-to-face meeting, I think that if this had been brought up, I think I might have said, you know what, maybe this is a real big deal. And I think I probably would have been more open to it. Even when your secretary suggested it to me in the office in the summertime when I really wasn't in a negotiating mood, I told her, I go, yeah, I think it's a good idea, but I really wasn't ready to go there yet. But with all that being said, I don't have a whole lot to say tonight, but I do want to say this. I think that the Chelmsford school system is one of the best in the state. You people have worked really hard to earn the reputation, and you guys are all good people. I never wanted to come in here and trash anybody or anything like that. I was just fighting for my kid, and you know, when you lose everything in life, sometimes you'll draw lines in the sand. You go, I'm fighting this one. I'm going to fight, and I'm going to stick to it. But with that being said, the process took way too long, and I finally come to the conclusion that even if Bailey didn't tell me he liked it there, I just didn't think it was any longer in his best interest to move him after he's been in school for 2 months. He's learning with the teacher, and he's finding his way. My suggestion moving forward is when you have something really bad to tell a parent that you know they don't want to hear, you got to bring them in and talk to them face to face, because it gives a chance for some of those conversations to go back and forth. I got a chance to meet Steve, the school therapist. I thought the guy was great. A very, very nice man, very honest man, very open man. And after I met with him, and then I went and sat with my son's therapist, I even joked with my son's therapist. I said, maybe I should push the kid out of the way and let me sit in this seat. And it finally hit me that, you know what, we did what we tried to do. I'm not angry or upset that Bailey wasn't given this permission, and I was never even upset with your decision, sir. I was just kind of perturbed with the process. And I think that as school committee members, if Dr. Lang is going to be the guy that's going to have to be the guy hanging the hat on him, you need to empower him. He needs to be allowed to make decisions that are important. Now I was told, and I was just told by a woman back here, there's many kids that are McCarthy that are in worse shape than my son. And what I find troubling about that is that means that 30 other people didn't get satisfactory answers. And I think that we need to try to do whatever we can to get those answers to everybody. And so there's a little bit better understanding. But I just want to thank all of you for your help, for your concern, for trying to get this moved along as quick as possible. And I just wanted to say thank you, because if you people didn't help out with getting the busing over to Parker, it probably would have made things a whole lot more different. One of the things I just wanted to stress is that one of the things, you all know when we all went home from school as kids, you wanted to run home and you wanted to give mom a hug and a kiss. Well, my son can't do that anymore, but what he can do is when he walks home with his cousins, he gets his aunt to give him a hug and a kiss. It's something that he looks forward to and that it's important to him. So my concern all along was Bailey having a support to keep him going and to make sure that he had a good support system where he was safe. But I just want to let you know that I came here tonight to thank all of you. And I want you to know that I appreciate the efforts that all of you have made. I think there might have been some misunderstandings along the way, but it was certainly a learning experience for me. And I hope that you all will take my recommendations seriously, because when there's a terminal illness in the house, everybody's life gets tipped upside down. I had to stop working. You have to find alternative ways to get things done. Doctor's appointments are at crazy times. And again, this is something for the subcommittee that decides it. But when all is said and done, I just hope that you guys find somewhere that you might be able to down the road help these kids, because Bailey made it. Bailey's going to make it. And Bailey's going to make it because he's got a good dad, and he's got a strong dad who's going to fight for him and push for him. And he's working his way through the system. Some kids may not be able to, and we can't leave kids behind. You know, we can't leave them behind. And so I came tonight. I really didn't want to come tonight, but I wanted to come and thank you all, and I wanted to move on. And I thought it was really important for me to come in here and tell each and every one of you that I sincerely thank you for, I don't know what you all did to Barbara tonight, but I wanted to thank everybody for all of your help. And
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. I think it was very helpful for us, and it seems to be for you to have this closure to at least to this point in the way things have been going. And I think we're all really thrilled to feel that he's doing well. And if he's been working with Dr. Liljegren, he's a great guy. And I hope you use all of the resources that are available to you at the school. So thank you for coming.
I think Bailey, on a whole, I think he's a very normal kid. I just think he's a kid who's a little bit shy, but as far as anything above and beyond, no. But anyways, I want to thank each and every one of you. I really appreciate. I'm glad we're where we are today.
Thanks
you.
again.
You all
Thank
take
you.
care of yourselves. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say one thing.
Sure.
First of all, I'm glad there was a solution to what was a very, naturally to everyone on this board and this entire community, because we have and have received a lot of feedback on this particular family, and I'm glad everything worked out. I will say one thing. I remember having a discussion with Dr. Lang, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but Dr. Lang I appreciate the idea that you had of saying, listen, until this is resolved, we can put together some kind of a busing program. So I know that started with you, and I appreciate that, Dr. Lang, and worked it out. You had a conversation with John also, but I know that was one of the ideas that you had to support Mr. Poirier's child on this. I do want to say one other thing. You know, sometimes people, on the surface, they hear something very important, it's near and dear to their heart, and we respect that and understand that. But I hope also people realize that, you know, this is not an easy job for our superintendent or the head of our school committee or the school committee itself. And sometimes, as a result of a situation, we just can't act immediately or that night or make a motion. And I'm just very happy the way it turned out. And I think you did. I think the school committee did a great job. There was a lot of support. I'm not sure what he meant when he said, "What did you do to Barbara?" I don't know why Barbara's not here. I'm not aware of a reason. But having said that, I just want to say that I know it was your idea to bus Bailey over there. I know it was your idea to keep working on the program. And I'm glad Mr. Poirier is happy that he dropped the 504, if I'm saying it the right way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Quickly, not to belabor it, I do think I don't want to take the credit for the transportation piece. Debbie and others in our office work with families on a daily basis that have different issues, and we'll always try to work with families to come up with accommodations if we can that are going to make their school experience better. So that's not only for this situation, but I think the staff, not only at central office but in the schools, really do go above and beyond to try to work with families to make situations better. I'm certainly happy for the family that there appears to be some closure from all of my interactions with the schools and the school in this particular case. It certainly seems like things are going down the right path. The school committee was actively involved and interested, and I think still will and should look at that the policy itself and why we do what we do. It's timely to do that. I also think not reacting sometimes as we didn't do in this case, but like the night when something comes up, there is a reason for that, and so I'm glad we're going through that process. Just as an aside, Barbara did email us and just indicate that she has a work commitment that she got stuck from, so she won't be able to make it tonight. But it had nothing to do with us.
Okay, good.
Okay. One more round.
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Hannah Barker. I'm from Newtown Way, and I came up with something to comment about, but I wanted to comment on Mr. Porter. He and I were speaking ahead of time, and I just wanted to clarify. The only point I was trying to make to him was that, sadly, he's not the only parent in that position in our district, and his child is not the only one. Sorry. And so as we've talked about before, I think it's really, really important to be able to provide the support to our staff, to everybody, so that they can help all the kids that need it. And we've had those conversations before. We need money for social workers, for more guidance support. I mean, those types of particular situations are ones that, sadly they occur more often than anticipated, but, that's not really the main line of experience that a lot of school counselors have. So, that's hard for them to, how do you support a family? How do you react? How do you support the kids? So, just want to straighten out, I did not mean to convey to him there are lots of people in worse conditions. Just sadly, there's more situations like that pop up every year than we would want. But what I came to talk to you about is really quick. 2 weeks from today, CHS is going to have their first grade-wide financial literacy fair. Andy Shoup and Marilyn Sweeney are putting it together. And I think it's something that Mr. Shoup has done in his classrooms for a couple of years. And because the subject of financial literacy is really important, they are setting this up to try and run it, I think, kind of grade-wide, aimed at most of the juniors. So kids in a finance class, no matter what grade they're in, will go. But then they're going to open it up to the rest of the juniors. So if any of you guys would like to come and see how this works in action, it's going on all day in the Learning Commons. And we're still looking for anyone who wants to volunteer. There's links off the CHS bulletin and a couple other sources in the district. But just any parent who wanted to come and volunteer, we can use the help in helping kids. Adding and subtracting is basically, it's kind of like a game of life. You get a profession and a budget, and you have to find housing and transportation and everything else that you need and try and make it all work. So they're excited to have that. It's 2 weeks from today, so Tuesday the 17th.
And if someone is watching, if they want to participate, who should they reach out directly to help? Should they reach out to you? Should they reach out to Mr. Shoup?
You can reach out to me, but Marilyn and Andy are running it, so you can call the high school and ask for Marilyn Sweeney or Andy Shoup.
Okay.
And should be a fun day.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to us?
Hi, I'm here to see if the field trip gets approved.
Oh, okay. Well, if you think of something to talk about, you can come.
No, only if you had something you wanted to tell us, but, okay.
Okay. Why don't you do good news, and then we'll have the girls do
We'll
their
start
good
with-
news. But
okay.
either way, which,
That's fine.
Well, you don't want to steal their thunder.
I don't want to steal their thunder.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm afraid, because for me, it's easier for me to concede.
okay. You're on.
Okay. So last Saturday, the athletics department honored the 1987 and 2007 Super Bowl winning football teams and their respective coaches. We have open house this Thursday for the parents. Next Tuesday, the 10th, we're going to have a school-wide viewing of If Only. So that's a film made by the Wahlberg Foundation talking about opioid addiction. And then we're going to have a parent viewing of the movie on the 11th.
Okay. Also last week we had social studies classes do a mock Senate at the EFK Center. And then upcoming this week we have seniors doing senior seminar workshops where they learn how to build a resume and work with the Common App and do college interviews. So that's all during Plus Block this week. And also tomorrow we are starting our first Flex Block, which is when school starts an hour later to do like prep for school and everything. So.
I always try to stay away from the high school things anyway. So just a couple of things. At the last school committee, I talked about the All-Town Win Ensemble. They were going to be going to the Red Sox. They went this past Friday night. It was amazing. I saw lots of posts. I ended up going to the Red Sox the next day, but I saw lots of posts, and the kids had a great time. Talked to Christy Whittlesey, and she said it was an amazing event. The other thing I'd like to follow up with is that the Parker Middle School is having their parent night, PTO night, for students to go to the Riverhawk game in Lowell, so that should be an interesting night, and it's always fun. It's a great game to catch. And then tomorrow night, at all 4 of our elementary schools, we are having a community open house. We want to make sure we invite people to come to look at the modulars from 6 to 7:30, so please feel free to go to one of the 4 elementary schools, and you'll be greeted by both principals and other central office staff to go through the modulars and see what they look like. That's it.
Thank you very much. All right, first item of business is take a look at the resolutions that will be presented at the school committee conference in November. So if you would turn to that material. Just a comment that we don't have to take a stand on it if people don't have a strong feeling to support or not to support. We don't have to take one of those actions. Sometimes it's not clear, whether it would affect us, and if so, it's not clear to us, period. So that's okay to do. Also, just for those of you that are newer, some of these resolutions come back a few years in a row because they're to give direction in terms of what we would like to see take place in the legislature. And we're not always successful in getting what the resolution calls for. So if some of you have been around and you say, well, didn't we do this before? We may have, and in the future we may see some of these come up again because, again, they're to give direction and don't always lead to appropriate legislation. So, I don't know. I hate to read all of these. If you had a chance to look at them, if not, we can.
Framingham was really active this year, huh?
Yeah. A lot of these, another concern, may appear to be, a lot of these seem to be broad-based, but a lot of times in the past, resolutions have come out of one particular district, and it's almost their particular concern and not the concern of others. I think most of these are more broad-based, but at any rate. Perhaps if we take what I'll do is read the resolution and decide where we want to go. Massachusetts Association of School Committees file for and support legislation that will implement the movement of Chapter 70 funding enrollment date to March 15th. And there's rationale, just the key point, giving the districts the ability to base their budget on the enrollment rate after the peak enrollment time will allow districts to base their budgets with increased accuracy. I can't speak to it, but I mean, obviously the idea is to give more time, perhaps.
I don't know. This is one that I personally, I guess I can see both sides of. One of the issues, and this is particularly a bigger issue in urban districts, just the fluctuation of the populations in and out over the course of the year. So I'm not surprised like a Framingham would bring this forward, or a larger district. But oftentimes right now our Chapter 70 enrollment is based on your student head count on October 1st. So originally what I thought this was seeking to do was to almost take a snapshot like twice. So take a snapshot on October 1st and then another one on March 1st, do some kind of averaging, just so the students aren't negatively impacted. But as I read this further, it looks like they're almost trying to change the date from October 1 to March, 1st to the 15th. Personally, I don't think it's going to have a big impact on Chelmsford as far as the population goes. I don't know, for all practical purposes, how the state would do the budget if the date gets moved beyond October 1st. So I honestly don't think this one has a big impact on you one way or the other. But for all practical purposes, the governor's budget is predicated on the October 1 numbers, and if those don't come out in the fall, then I don't know how they set a budget to come out at the end of January. But I don't think you're really harmed or helped one way or the other on this one. If they did some kind of an averaging, that would actually be interesting, but I don't know that this is what that does.
I think it's the concern that, kids will go to a school for the first month of the year.
Right.
And then they move back to their other district, and that district doesn't get to count that kid
Right.
as part of their enrollment.
Right. No, I get that, but I just don't know about like moving that date to March.
But it's
I don't know how practical that is if you're trying to, get budget numbers out from the state, but I don't think it hurts you one way or the other, to support it or not support it.
What I'll do is I'll ask if there's a motion. If there's a motion, not a motion made, I'll assume that we're going to take a stand on it. Anyone like to make a motion to support this? All right, hearing none, I'll just indicate no action. Second one, reform of circuit breaker. As you know, well, I'll just read the resolution. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees file for and support legislation that will support the provision of reform of circuit breaker funding and support recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission. And then the statistics there at the bottom, that from 26 to 2012, the special ed costs have increased 56%, compared to 36% for all public education. Do you
Yeah,
want to say?
I would recommend supporting this one. This one does have implications really for all districts. And what this one does is, there's a cap on the extraordinary relief that you can apply for special education, and you can't go over the 125% limit, as long as this was something that was equally distributed among all communities. In the event that, like, Chelmsford had an extreme case, and we could apply for it, again, we'd want to get the same kind of relief that any other community would get. It just becomes really an issue of there's only so much of the pie to split up, and where do you split it up? But if you do have a case that comes along that is one of these extraordinarily high cases, it can cripple a school system. So I absolutely get what they're coming from. So I would recommend you support this one. I don't
What
see how
the
this
resolution do?
I think, to be honest with you, what this does is basically kick it back to the legislature to say that there's no real call to action on this one. It's
It just lends support.
to basically have them reevaluate whether they should have the cap at 125%.
That's up to them.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt you.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support resolution number 2, reform of the circuit breaker funding.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any abstention or negative vote? Okay, supported. Support 4-0. The explanation on this next one is long, but there was an attempt to get a greater rate of financial support that was rejected by the Supreme Judicial Court, but they did not rule out the possibility of this coming up again, and so the resolution is designed to address that. The members of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, through its delegate assembly, authorizes the Board of Directors to, number 1, reassess the need for a new round of litigation to secure funding to guarantee an adequate appropriation of funds, and, number 2, assess the viability of a lawsuit to secure such funding, and 3, join with other parties at interest to plan and file such a lawsuit if it is determined that there is likelihood of success, and finally 4, that the Board of Directors shall be authorized to use the reserves of the association to help underwrite the cost of such litigation.
Yeah, this is one I recommend you support. It's certainly not going to hurt you. This basically brings up the whole ed reform funding formula and what is an adequate education in Massachusetts, and basically would only help all systems, even in this regard where it's formula-based. Every system would be held proportionally. It's at no cost to the district, and to be able to get traction on another look at seeing if ed reform in Chapter 70 is providing an adequate education level certainly would be timely. So I'd recommend you support this one.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support resolution number 3, litigation for fair school finance.
Second.
Second. Sorry.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Resolution 4. This gets into concern about vouchers and taking public money to pay for private schools. And so the resolution is that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, recognizing the provisions of the state constitution, oppose any state or federal legislation initiative to authorize the use of state funds for education to subsidize the tuition or costs of private schools, except where specifically authorized for students in special ed. I think that probably is enough to read. I think that gets at it. Would you like to comment on that one?
No, my read of this one is it's basically trying to give a say at the local level about whether these type of programs should be allowed or not. So not to have it just be like a state decree that would allow some kind of a privatization, but it would actually indicate that like a local group would have to weigh in on it. Again, I don't see how this certainly infringes upon your rights, and if anything, it tries to get control at the local level as opposed to the state level, to have you have some type of a say in the matter. The bigger issue for me is what's happening at the federal level, which this doesn't address. So at the state level, the quantity of money is minimal compared to the federal funding. So this doesn't really get at any kind of federal
Does this deal with
federal stance.
when you see private schools? Is that another word for charter schools?
Well, charter schools are technically public schools, but I think what this is kind of earmarking at would be some kind of, it's similar to ELSA, like a voucher type program to allow a public school student to get a voucher to go to a private school if it was, say, operated within town. And what this is aiming to do is say if there's any kind of state money that's associated with it, the school committee would have to weigh in to say if we want to allow vouchers or not, and not have, say, a voucher program be just a state level dictate.
Is there a reason we have to take a stand on this?
No, I mean, technically, you don't have to take a stand on any of them. It's totally up to you guys. How applicable it would even be to Chelmsford, to be quite honest with you.
Big picture is the federal government, what they're going to do.
Right,
you know.
right. And this isn't going to affect the federal government at all. You know?
The next one, okay.
So, I mean, it's totally up to you.
So, do we want a motion on this? Hearing none. Okay. Resolution 5 deals with the use of federal funds. Several federal grant programs allow the Commonwealth in general and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in particular to take an administrative overhead allowance from government aid programs, including the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Perkins Vocational Technical Education Act, and certain programs under the Department of Agriculture. And that's part of it. And so the resolution is that the Association urges legislators to restrict the ability of the Commissioner, Secretary of Education, or Board of Elementary Education to take for its own purposes or to use the Department of Elementary and Secondary, for the use of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so it's a question of redirecting some of the money. Do you want to say anything on this?
Yeah, there's a lot of funds that just kind of basically get channeled through the Department of Education, and as money gets tight at the state level and local level, as they see grant funds eliminated, sometimes they will try to jump onto and take pieces of grant funds that they're then passing through to the local communities. So this is looking to just restrict that and say if there is money that's earmarked for a particular program, it needs to go to that program, that the DOE shouldn't take a cut before it goes out to the program. So I'd recommend your approval of this one, or support of this one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I make a motion to support resolution number 5, use of federal funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any
I'm off today. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sal.
You're right on. What are you
I'm
kidding?
letting you down.
Away.
mentally.
Any conversation, questions, whatever? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any dissenting vote?
No, I got it.
Unanimous
No, I'm on it now.
Support.
Sean, you got the
Okay,
pass.
resolution 6 on the foundation budget. The resolution says that MASC calls upon the legislature to enact the recommendations of the foundation budget into law, and further, that the legislature order the commission to reconvene in order to conduct further deliberations and make such recommendations as the previous committee or the committee may propose, and further that committee shall address and make recommendations to the overall accuracy of the overall foundation budget. I get wordy there, but
A
anyway.
lot of accuracy.
Yeah. Anyway,
This one, I'd recommend you support it. Basically, again, just looks to have the legislature take another hard look at the foundation review that was done. So, no harm in this
Would
one.
certainly be key to us.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support resolution number 6, the foundation budget.
Second. Nailed it.
Okay, any comment or question? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Supported. Resolution 7, the final one, dealing with Affordable Care Act and Medicaid. The resolution says that MASC urges the Congress to preserve the Affordable Care Act and its expansion of Medicaid programs for the states, and further, MASC urges the General Court to require that 100% of Medicaid reimbursements to cities and towns be provided in full amount to the public schools of each municipality to underwrite the cost of providing an adequate education.
I think that's what we want to support.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support resolution number 7, the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, 4 people. Okay. The other item that relates to this is we need to have a person selected from this group to represent us at the meeting where all of this voting takes place.
I can do that, unless you want. Are you going?
I'm going to go later in the day, so I won't be.
Okay, yeah, I can do it. I'll take it. I'm going to the
Okay.
conference.
Need a motion?
Yeah, move, John.
I make a motion to support John Moses as the delegate for the 2017 MASC voting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thanks for stepping forward, John.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Anytime. No problem.
It's pretty interesting, and you wouldn't,
It is really actually
the
interesting.
people who propose these, it's very passionate.
Yeah. I actually did it last year, and
We need a second.
the most
Oh, we
popular
need a-
person in the room always, though, is the one that moves to vote. The guy
Okay.
that goes up, you got to time it right. I did it once, and I nailed
Right.
it.
We need an alternate. You're not going to be there?
Not till later in the day.
No, I can be the alternate.
Okay.
Want to move that?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to select Al Thomas, Chairman of the Board, as the alternate delegate for the 2017 MASC delegate.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, unanimous. Okay, thank you. We did that reasonably well. It's sometimes a difficult thing to get done. Policy revision. Okay, this is
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so this is a policy that previously came forward to the school committee some point last winter, January or February or so, and it was put aside for some extra follow-up. So the language within the policy has already been revised and approved by the committee. The only thing that was left hanging that we wanted to be able to verify was the maximum check amount column, the 20,000, the 6,000, and the 6,000. So currently at both middle schools, McCarthy and Parker, the max check amount is 4,000. So we are recommending that go from 4,000 to 6,000. That's why it's written on the form the way it is. Other than that, the language within the policy stays as approved previously. But this is the clean revised policy for you to approve and kind of finish off this one. This was just hanging out there from last year.
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the recommendations made for school policy 4304 as stated, student activity account.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
You need dissenting vote.
It's your moment.
Okay,
Field
so
trip.
that's unanimous. I just
Make
have
a
a
motion to
comment.
adjourn.
Oh, Sal. Don't do it.
I should like to.
I would never do that to
The
you.
policy committee has met, and as you know, we have several outstanding issues. We were not ready to take any action. It's going to take a little more work, but we are headed in that direction. Okay,
All right, under the fourth item of the agenda this evening, new business, is the approval of the conferences and field trip requests. We don't have any conferences to approve this evening, but we do have 3 field trips. The first one is for the Parker Middle School to the sixth grade band, chorus, and orchestra to go to Canopy Lake Park next June 1st. The second trip is for 2 of the environmental science classes at Chelmsford High School to go to the Seacoast Science Center at, I can never pronounce that name. Odioran? Odeon Point in Rye, New Hampshire on October 11th. And then third is the Chelmsford High School, the 10th grade French 3 class to go to Quebec City, Quebec, Canada, March 8th through 11th. So you have all of the documentation and the approvals behind these, the requests. Happy to answer any questions, but would recommend your approval, and you certainly can take them together.
Mr. Chairman, with pleasure, I'd like to make a motion to approve all field trips as stated: Parker Middle School, Canopy Lake Park; Chelmsford High School, the Seacoast Science Center at Odeon Point, Rye, New Hampshire; and Chelmsford High School, grade 10, French class, Quebec City, Canada.
Second.
My favorite motions.
Favorite
Field
always.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any dissenting vote? Unanimous 4.
Good to go.
Do we have any liaison reports?
Yeah, I went to, finally got to go to my first PTO, the BSA. The Miami, so they're such a busy group for enrichment. They're really great. They do the Boo Bash every year, which like 25,000 people show up for, and you can't walk, but it's great, and it really raises a lot of money. They do the big walk every year. And that was good. It was just a really good to kind of open up the school year again with the parents. Got some new parents in there. And my daughter goes to that school, so it kind of works out.
I get to get over to both Harrington and Center School for their PTO meetings, and both schools seem to be getting off to a good start, and teachers and students are kind of getting back into the swing of things, and they'll be starting up their activities and their fundraisers. I also attended the first meeting of the new CPAC, which is Special Ed Parent Advisory Council, and great turnout. I think Dr. Wang was there, and it was with 30 people, probably.
If not more, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a great turnout. The 2 interim chairs, Donna Newcomb and Jen Bottleman, did a nice job kind of explaining what the organization was about and the kind of activities they'd be involved with, and then Amy Reese was there to answer some questions. So I thought everything got off to a good start. I think everybody left there feeling that they were on the right track at that point.
And actually, I get some great feedback from the parent support group too.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
they were there, and
Yep.
and everybody seemed like they were on board with things.
Good meeting.
Just got to get them in a room. Everybody's happy.
They were all together.
They were all together.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, no, I do have one thing. So I do apologize. So one thing that has come up in a couple meetings and from parents is, and I kind of mentioned this to you in the past, is that are we working on any kind of, and I know this is administration, but any kind of storage for the modulars? Because they don't have much storage.
Yeah, storage is, there's still a couple of things that are coming for the modulus,
Yeah.
right? So the buildings themselves, they're open, we're using them. There's a couple of things that are still on their way, so just so everyone knows this. There will be some type of cubby coat hanging
Yep.
type fixture in the hallway, so hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later.
You're just waiting on permits, right?
Yeah, it's a long story. It's basically trying to find building materials and particular units that will conform with the different building codes and work with the fire department and the town to have that done. But we're hoping to have that done in relatively short order so that by the time the kids are wearing their coats to school for the winter, they'll have a place to hang them. So that is in short order. That's on the horizon coming up soon. A second thing, a lot of teachers have talked about, the buildings are beautiful. We didn't, when we built them, build like extra storage rooms and things like that. So within each classroom, there is a closet in the classroom that was basically just an empty closet. Brian Curley in Facilities has worked with one of our vendors who does shelving,
Yeah.
like kind of industrial metal shelving that you'd see like in a kitchen or something like that. So they have shipped some shelving in to kind of try it and see how it works. The unit that came in that we thought was going to fit perfectly doesn't fit perfectly. So it was good that we only ordered one and not 22 of them. So they're still trying to retrofit them to kind of get them in there. We want to put them in one of the mods, let the teachers try it, see if they like it before we go all out and buy them for everyone. But there will be shelving that goes into the closets in the classrooms. There is not a lot of extra storage in the units themselves. So if there is like curriculum materials or different even within the main buildings themselves, like kits that they're not using right away. What we probably are going to have to do is store some of that material in the main building, because there just isn't storage space in the pods for that space. So that is coming. The other thing that we did order is additional whiteboards and bulletin boards, cork boards for the classrooms. So that'll happen sometime in October. That's been another thing that people have been asking for. So all these kind of like some smaller things, but are real important to the people who are in the rooms each day. Are probably October punch list type activities.
Okay.
But so it is. Nothing has been forgotten. Things are on order. It's just a matter of kind of scheduling those fine touches. But I'm feeling good by the end of the month that we'll be in good shape with that.
Awesome. And by the BSA, and it specifically is actually building, they're making little bags to hang off the sides of the desk for all the kids to put their books in. Because apparently desks don't flip up anymore.
Right.
They don't make them that way. Who knew? I don't know. I've been in a desk in a long time, but
Yeah.
they have like grates, and then pencils fall through. It's like a huge thing. So they need to make little bags.
There'll be some workarounds, but the new furniture, if you've seen it, I mean,
Your desk has drawers. Don't make
It's
faces.
very
at me
sleek
like
and kind of new furniture, but people do. People like the rooms very much.
that. Awesome. Thank you.
Just one thing, Sal, then you can
Yes,
go.
sir.
The Alumni Association, as most of you know, is undertaking a capital campaign to institutionalize the organization, make sure that the Hall of Fame and the Authors Wall and the publication and all those things continue. And on Sunday, October 15th, at the Elks, there's going to be a cornhole tournament, but it's also, they're going to have entertainment, food. It's going to be a great time. And so I hope that people, the Alumni Association is very closely tied to our school system, and I hope that people will support that event. And it sounds like a good time. Heather Lindstedt is leading that campaign and doing a good job. So,
I had the pleasure of sitting down with Heather Lindstedt and discussing the Alumni Association, and I have to tell you, she is a breath of fresh air. She is so exciting. She is a wonderful classmate of mine, and I look forward to working with Heather. And if anybody is listening, please take your calls from Heather. Her mission is to support Chelmsford schools, and she's doing an unbelievable job through the association. So thank you, Heather. Thank you very much.
now you
Mr.
can.
Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any dissenting vote? No. Unanimous, 4.
When you come in next week, you're going to have